So what I'd like to do is start with a post, a question or a comment that comes from, it was voted the #1 comment by the people who used the website. So a lot of people could vote that they vote up or down other people's comments. And this one was by far the winner of being the one that most people were interested or backed. So she said, most people do not understand what cognitive systems are. This leads to a skewed interpretation of what robots can and can't do. How can we clearly label cognitive capabilities on robot products in an understandable, non-mystical manner? So this I'd like to kick off. I'd like this to kick off the discussion, in particular, with the first time segment dedicated to roughly industry, cognitive systems as consumer items, cognitive systems and industry, cognitive systems in that sense. So I do have one or two more in this general area from the robotsandyou site. How do we ensure that robots or other AI systems improve our well-being and do not harm us or threaten our autonomy? That's from Mathis. And here's a business model, perhaps. Maybe we'll get free robots in exchange for, I guess, those robots analyzing our behaviors for ads. Let's call it Robobook or Roboogle. So there are some suggestions and one more related to industry or products, perhaps. Again, and not targeting specifically cognitive systems, but noticing that sometimes, at least sometimes, coffee drinkers are more satisfied when they get coffee prepared by a particular automated coffee preparation method than by a real barista. So with those comments from the public in place, I'd like to open it up to our panel to see if they have any reactions. Yes, Sunny.
I just wanted to react to the first one about labeling cognitive systems. And I don't think it will surprise you based on my talk. I think this is really misunderstanding the way technology works. Right? We don't label this is a cognitive system and this is an input system. And whenever we start to attach a lot of pompous nomenclature to things, that's when they stop becoming products. Right? So I would say we don't attempt to do that, except if we're doing a psychological experiment, in which case, obviously, we have to be very clear about which are the cognitive bits and is the person interacting well with them. But labeling things and saying, oh, this is the cognitive bit, I don't think that helps anyone. It certainly doesn't help the manufacturer.
Andrea?
Oh, I personally actually disagree. I think that labeling or providing instructions or putting a sign could be an effective way of showing that a robot has some features or capacities. It's not that you have to get into the details and explain what exactly the robot can do, but maybe you can provide with a label or with a sign a warning, that something which would equate to a warning that you know that the robot is enabled to do some things or to learn to do some things. And that could be also required from a legal perspective in order to make the consumer aware of what is purchasing or what it's doing. So, because maybe if the robot had cognitive capacity, it could learn to do some things, and you might be liable for having taught the robot to do certain of those things. So, yeah.
Okay, so we've got a fight going on.
Yeah.
I think
as per the Nespresso thing, I think she has never been to Italy and never had.
Okay, so a truly European perspective on the issue. Okay.
I want to agree with Sunny here. In fact, what I think we're looking at is not some sort of cliff or a level. We're looking at boiling frog syndrome. Every year, or every week perhaps, the technology in your car, the technology in your aircraft, the technology in your pocket gets a little bit smarter. And that's what we should be telling the public. It's not something that happens like that. Suddenly there are robots everywhere. What's happening is literally boiling frog syndrome. We're seeing systems progressively getting more cognitive ability, and I think we would do a favour to the public if we tried and made that clear to them. There isn't some sudden jump here.
And can I just come back on it too, because I think as an Apple girl, as opposed to Microsoft person, what you want is something that is intuitive to use. The more you are making me read stuff in order to use something, the more broken I think it is, right? Just give me the thing, let me play with it, I'll figure out how it works. If it does a bit of learning, I mean, so Siri does a little bit of learning, that's all I need to know. You don't need to tell me beyond that, just as long as I know what to do with it. And I just think, you know, it's like, have any of you seen the video of what an Apple product box would look like if you let Microsoft do it with all of the logos and things on at the end? I think that's exactly what you end up with. You end up with bad design.
I'm Rob Clowes, University of Lisbon. I think it's a really interesting suggestion that doesn't, I mean, I don't think people have dismissed it out of hand, but I think, okay, so look, lots of people seem to want to have their food classified when they buy a packet of food from Waitrose or something, and see, you know, what's. So how would we do it if we were actually going to try and do it? So would we say put different types of animal or different classes of animal on the side to say what kind of level of intelligence, you know, ranging from the nematode worm perhaps up to, or from the organism up, from the cell to the nematode worm up to the monkey. I mean, the problem is, I mean, actually it sounds like quite a good thing if we could do it, because at least it would be intuitive. But the problem, as we all know, is that our artificial intelligence in that sense isn't really very clever, right? So we wouldn't, so it'd be, maybe most people might think, well, nematode worm, we're kind of, that would be the top level that we could aim at. But it does, given that so much technology is claimed to be smart in various ways, maybe we should think a little bit harder about what that actually means, and if there is anything that we can indicate. So, for instance, I use my son, I've bought him a Storeo device, which is a device which is supposed to help him read. I'm not really sure if it does this, but he finds it lots of fun. It'd be interesting to know what level of AI, if any, this device actually contains. You know, maybe there is a role for this.
Hi, my name's Marilyn. I think what it is not so much what AI is in the device, but how it interacts and what it gathers by way of information and its capacity. And I think that's the dividing line. Because I know my washing machine's got some fuzzy logic in it, but I don't think it does any data collection as far as I know. Perhaps it might in the future, and maybe that bothered me, it might not. But I think something that I'm going to interact with intimately in terms of technology or is embedded within the environment, then I do want to know what capacity it has, because I think that's a different relationship, and I think it's more to do with the relationship that you have with your technology and the potential development of that relationship, rather than with its sort of base IQ.
The first question is basically demystify. I think the human technology interface for the care world, that's a really important issue. So, you know, if you can reduce it to one button to do everything, that would be great. And that leads on into how do we improve our well-being and how do we improve our autonomy, if you like. It's by making things which are designed initially from the user's point of view. So in the care world, we have to go from the user's point of view all the time, and we are judged by our users in all sorts of ways that are tied into the governance of our organisation. That is actually in the third sector. In the private sector, it's not the case. So, you know, when you're designing a system or a robot, a cognitive system or a robot, it has to be designed with users involved in the design from the outset. And then regulating how it's used in the hands of the people who own it or deploy it. And that, of course, is an area we discussed in the security and privacy discussion earlier. It's one which now goes into politics. Are we, if the systems are in the hands of people like me, then obviously we're going to do the right thing. If they're in the hands of the global capitalists, maybe they won't, you know. So who's controlling it? And that's a political issue. Nespresso versus barista. Well, that takes me on to one of my favourite issues, which is that cognitive systems have in themselves something to contribute to our lives over and above what human contact can do. So in the care world, would you rather have your bottom wiped by a robot or by a human carer? If it was me, I definitely want a robot to do it, but only if it's properly programmed and it's got nice soft hands. So let's not go any further down that route. But the example I think I gave of George, who was paraplegic, if he hadn't had those adapted systems, he would have been utterly dependent on humans being able to speak, to do all his artwork. He could speak, do all his artwork for him, go shopping for him, arrange a lot of his life for him. But because of those systems, he actually was able to do it himself. So these systems, often in the care world, people are frightened of these systems, and I think the general public see cognitive systems and robots as opposed to the warm, friendly, caring process. Well, it's important to remember they actually have something often to offer well above it. I'm not going to look at the downsides of this because I think those are very well covered, but that would be my view on those three questions from the care perspective.
Okay, Christophe, you wanted to come in here.
Yes, about these questions, Nespresso versus barista. I think we tend to make these questions tends to make an opposition between robotics and bartender or barista to serve coffee. But the objective of robotics or assistive robotics is not to replace people. It's just to provide some services, and the services is you're free to use it or not. And that's for me. This type of question is really connected to the main issue we have in robotics is the communication problem with the public, is to make people understand what is the aim of researchers in robotics. People are not looking for at designing robots that would overpower human, but to provide to make machines, and we would be very glad if the machines we're designing were really doing what we expect them to do. We are far from that sometimes, and that relates also to the second question on how on the threats with robotics. It's just it's for me it's also the same. It's one of the key issue we have to deal with when we communicate to the public is how to explain our objectives as a robotics researcher or robotics organizations. That's not to really the objective is to provide services and not to and services that work, like a washing machine or a vacuum cleaner or something like that.